Inside the halls of San Diego State University lies a program dedicated to storytelling and pursuing the truth. Welcome to Where You At, a podcast that takes you inside the work of alumni for the School of Journalism and Media Studies at San Diego State. Our goal is to show the success of our alumni, inspire students with the stories, and connect students and alums on a pathway to journalism success. And now, here's your host, Josh Sushan.
This week on the Where You At podcast, we are heading up to Los Angeles, California, and we're talking about a lot of different elements involving sports journalism. Really excited about this week's podcast. We're going to be talking about live TV sports, including the Olympics and Paralympics and the feature stories that accompany those live TV sporting events. But we're also going to be discussing feature stories that sometimes can be a little bit uncomfortable, but those are really important stories that need to be told. Our guest this week is Kayla Asencio. She attended San Diego State from 2014 through 2018. She has not been out of college for a very long time, but she has done a lot of really cool things. She has been nominated for an Emmy 4 times. She has worked, she started at KUSI. She's worked for NBC Sports locally, nationally. She's worked for Apple TV, the Women's Sports Network, a lot of work currently with the NFL. Kayla, welcome to the Where You At podcast.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you so much, Josh. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, this is Women's History Month, and this is our first episode of the month. And so I'm super excited to talk about your work that you've done in following the footsteps of other women who have worked in the industry as well. And so maybe that's a good place to start. When you were growing up, who were your inspirations? Who did you look at and say, that's the person who I really admire, or these are the types of people that I admire, and maybe I can do something like they are doing?
Well, first person I have to say that always inspired me was my mom. You know, I was raised by a single mom, hardworking. I think she instilled that in me. So I have to give my shout out to mom. And then as far as career wise, you know, I always looked at the Tracy Wolfsons, the Pam Olivers, the sideline reporters. That was originally what I thought I wanted to do, because you don't tend to see, you know, the people that are doing the work behind the scenes, you know, on camera or on full display. It's always the ones that are in front of the camera. And so I loved football. I was born in El Paso, Texas. And so football is like a religion over there. And I grew up loving football. I grew up watching, you know, games with my grandpa while my mom and grandma were out grocery shopping or doing their shopping. And I wanted to stay home with Gramps and, you know, watch the game. And I was playing football in the street with my uncles and cousins. And so that was something that I just fell in love with at a young age and knew I wanted to kind of pursue as a career someday, but didn't really know like what that looked like yet.
How does a girl from West Texas and El Paso end up in San Diego, California to go to college?
Well, so funny enough, my mom, she got a job transfer to San Diego, and crazy enough, she had always wanted to go to San Diego or like end up in San Diego. I think she had visited when she was really young with, you know, my grandparents and her brothers. And she wrote in like a yearbook or something that she wanted to live there one day. And so manifestation, call it whatever right. you know, want to say, but she got a job transfer in San Diego. And so then I started 3rd grade in San Diego and was there 3rd grade through college, fell in love with the city. I mean, America's finest city. How can you not fall in love with it? And so, yeah, we moved from Texas to San Diego and the rest is history.
Was journalism always the plan along, or was there a couple of aha moments that made you think that this is not just something I can watch with my family and play in the streets, but this is something that could turn into a career for me?
Yeah, I think I got really lucky because when I was in middle school, I remember I had a media production class that I ended up taking as an elective, and we would put on, you know, the school announcements. I was a morning anchor reading the news, and I kind of just fell in love with it at that point. And we would go out and do these little packages, and I continued that on in high school as well. So we had an amazing program at Otay Ranch High School called KOR TV, where I had a teacher, Mrs. Eklund, who was just, you know, one of my biggest supporters and always encouraged me to go out and do the best that I could. And so I took my media production experience from middle school to high school. I wrote for our school newspaper. I was the sports editor. So I kind of knew early on that I wanted to pursue a career in sports. And that's actually what helped me get into the Prep Pigskin Report, if you want me to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's make sure we set this up. I'm going to tee you up on this. So you're attending San Diego State, you're a student, and KUSI has a long, great history of interns from San Diego State. I remember when I was in school, there was a bunch of different people who were classmates of mine who interned. The Prep Pigskin Report, which is a tongue twister, has been a staple of San Diego television for a long time. Tell us about how you got involved with this as a student.
I had a classmate that was a year older than me when I was in high school, who he kind of got his foot in the door at KUSI News, but he was a photographer, like a cameraman, you know? And so I remember looking at Jacob and saying, wow, like he's working for PPR, and everybody knows PPR down in the South Bay and all of San Diego County. Like that was the show that you would watch Friday nights. I want to say it's 10:45, if I remember, 10:30, 10:45, something like that. But after the games were going on, you would go home, watch the highlights on PPR and see them do their thing. And so I remember reaching out to Jacob, like, hey, how did you get in? Like, I really want to do it. And so he told me, like, I talked to Paul, email Paul Rudy right now, you know? And so I emailed Paul, and he had me in the building not long after. And I remember going to orientation for San Diego State, finding out, I think, that I had just gotten a job with them. So it wasn't actually an internship. It was my first job. I was 18 years old.
Really?
Yeah. And so I was covering high school football games as my very first job for KUSI News.
Wow. Okay. So that's super impressive, because for a lot of people, including myself, I wanted a year just kind of like settle into my new environment. Where do I go? Classes, get into the field of the collegiate experience before I even got the courage to walk into the Daily Aztec office. But you started immediately.
Yeah, I started immediately. I just wanted to get my foot in the door, and yeah, I'm just really passionate about what I do. And so I thought that would be a great opportunity. And so having to juggle, going to college, working at, KUSI on Friday nights, I didn't go out much. I was more just, just trying to figure out that work-life balance. Still haven't figured out that much to this day. But yeah, no, I loved what I did. And I was there for, I want to say, almost 3 years. So almost my entire San Diego State journey until I got an internship at NBC San Diego. I think that was when I left, because I was also working at the bookstore at SDSU. I was a cashier, and so I was doing a lot.
For students who may not have that confidence from day one, right? Confidence kind of comes and goes, and sometimes you need a few things to build up your confidence. What would be your advice to students who maybe aren't quite ready day one of college to get out there and start trying to find these types of work experience, in terms of what you can give them as advice to try to find that confidence within them to go out and find these things?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And confidence is something I still, struggle with to this day. I might look like I am very confident in but no, you always have those moments of, oh my God, this is a whole new scenario. I'm doing this interview that I'm preparing for. I still get nervous, like 100%. And so I think the biggest advice I would give to students is just get those reps in, repetition, whether it's watching somebody else that's doing what you want to do and kind of just figuring out your own voice, your own style, practicing on your own, just getting comfortable with what you want to speak about and what you're passionate about. And I think that's a great confidence booster.
When it comes to the Prep Pigskin Report, okay, it's one thing to say, like, okay, I worked on that. Like, give us details. What exactly would you do? Do you have a big camera on your shoulder? Do you have a smaller camera? Are you editing? Are you writing scripts? It is a fast pace. There's very little time. It is live. The games are happening Friday night. You need to get the highlights back in. Describe what you did and the different things you learned.
Yeah, 100%. So I would go out with my cameraman, and we would, we had our assignments, whatever schools we were designated to. I think when I first started out, I was on the Game of the Week crew with a producer. His name was Mike Milburn, and I still talk to Mike to this day. So shout out to Mike. And we would go to whatever was the biggest game of the week that week. So whether it was Cathedral High School, whether it was Helix, Madison, St. Augustine, whichever school, and we would go and do these interviews that we called hogcasts. So before the game, we would try and find, a unique story and angle, whether it's talking to the fan that's raising money for a special cause, or whether it's talking to the student section, whatever it was. We would go do those pre-interviews, and then the best hogcasts would make air. Paul would select them, and whichever ones were great, he'd make air. And then in addition to the game going on, we were taking note of the highlights as they were happening. And then when we would rush back to the studio, like you mentioned, trying to make air, I would type out the shot sheets. I would write them in for Paul. We would, if there were any last names that were, complicated in spelling, we'd make sure we did it phonetically so that the pronunciations were right, because you never want to read someone's name wrong on air. It happened many of times, but do the best that you can. And so, it was really fast paced and adrenaline pumping, honestly, because you are trying to get all these highlights in, and you want to make sure you do your due diligence and give credit to the amazing players that are coming out of San Diego.
There's a lot of different elements of this. What skills did you initially just feel like, I'm good at this? And which ones did you struggle in terms of shooting, editing, quick editing, long editing, all of these different things? Where did you feel like your initial strengths were?
Well, I think originally we always had editors for us, but I kind of gravitated towards editing in the beginning when I was starting out. I didn't know if I wanted to do the on-camera route, just because I knew it was going to be, I don't want to say harder, but just like a different career path, right? Like I would probably have to start at like a small local news station and work my way up from a small market. Editing, I thought, was a great creative way for me to, express myself and get some of that creativity in that way. But then at the time, I didn't know that what I was doing was essentially producing. And so I think that was what I really loved. I just loved telling people stories. I loved talking to people. I loved seeing the different environments across all the different high schools that we would get to visit. That was something I really remember enjoying, just because every school does it differently. And I love San Diego with all my heart, and that's, home. And so getting to see all these different fans and how they, cheered on their team and how they celebrated on Friday Night Lights was just really special.
Let's not neglect that you're still a student at San Diego State. And tell us about any classes that were most memorable, whether it was within JMS, whether it was an elective, just different experiences on campus that are some of your fondest memories.
Yeah. Oh my God. So many come to mind. I had such a great experience at San Diego State. And, it's funny because I think a lot of people, when they grow up in San Diego, they want to leave home, right? They want to go somewhere kind of far. And my mom will be the first to say that I was not happy originally that I was staying local and going to go to San Diego State, because I wanted to do what my friends were doing. They were going out of state, or they were, going up north or whatever. But that was the best decision that I could have made. And thank you, Mom, for humbling me and just telling me, like, you will save money. You are going to go commute. I didn't live on campus. I commuted. I saved money. I did the whole thing. But no, there were so many instructors like Dr. Nee, Peggy Petey in her photojournalism class. At the time, our director was Dr. Shaw. She's somebody that I still keep in touch with to this day. And she's always offering me words of encouragement or saying how proud she is of me, saying that I need to go back and get my master's and teach students one day, which was, something that I think my mom had mentioned to me at some point, but then Dr. Shaw mentioned it as well. And I was like, maybe, maybe someday far down the line, but and then Professor Nicole Vargas was our internship professor at the time, and she helped me, land my NBC San Diego internship as well, and just gave me such great advice. And Professor Santana with the JMS writing, probably the hardest class I took, but very important, made me a great writer. I think those are the ones that come to mind off the top of my head.
Well, that's a good segue to going over to NBC with Nicole Vargas helping you land that internship. So you'd been at KUSI. Now you're heading over to the NBC affiliate in San Diego. Tell us about how you got the internship and how that continued your evolution and learning new skills.
Yeah, well, I think what helped me was that I had my foot in the door at KUSI News at an early age. And then not only did I have my foot in the door there, but I also continued my love of sports at San Diego State. I wrote for the Daily Aztec. I wasn't like full-time, devoting my every second and every minute to it that I had, unfortunately, just because I was working and doing all these other things. But I was a women's tennis beat writer at some point, and I was also taking photos when they needed somebody to take photos. I was trying to do it all, but I think all of that experience just made me a well-rounded candidate. And so when I applied to the internship position at NBC San Diego, I was lucky and blessed enough to get it. And so when I was there, it just opened up a whole new world of possibilities being a part of the NBC Universal family.
Yeah, and I'm glad you used the word family there, because NBC, look, there's NBC Sports Network, there's NBCs all over the country. And so tell us about how you ended up in New York under the NBC umbrella.
Well, like I said, it's an NBC Universal family. So I think when I was getting ready to graduate from San Diego State, I was looking for jobs. I was not sure what I was going to do, and the clock was ticking. I remember going to the JMS grad gala that they put on and not knowing where I was going to end up next. And there were people that already had their jobs and their next plan lined up. And I was just like, oh my God, what am I doing? And so I was starting to get a little nervous, but took the time, I traveled, I did this over the summer, and then I had applied to a 17-month rotational program that was designed for recent college graduates at NBC Sports in Stamford, Connecticut. At the time, I thought, it's kind of a long shot. Like, let me just apply, see what happens. And what I really liked about it was that it was different. It was 3 different departments. So you would essentially spend, I want to say, like 5 to 6 months in one department, and then you would rotate in another one, and you did that 3 times. And so I applied to that, not knowing what was going to happen. Like I said, I traveled, did Europe with my mom. It was a great experience. And then as we were getting ready to come back, I get an email saying, we want you to do the next step. And so I was like, okay. And so I remember I had to watch an NBC Sports broadcast. I had to critique it, say how I would make it better, send them my notes. And then it just kept getting more serious as time was going. And so then I had to do a video interview. And then I got a phone call saying, we want to fly you out to New York. And then they would take me by car to Connecticut. Their headquarters are in Stamford, Connecticut. And I was like, oh my God, like they want to fly me out across the country for this? Like, what is happening right now? And so yeah, I was flown out. I sat in on, I had 3 different panels of people interview me. It was a very rigorous interview process. And I think the final step was I had a Zoom with Sam Flood, an amazing man. He's the executive producer and president of production at NBC Sports. So, one of the highest people in the building at NBC Sports essentially is on the Zoom with me right now. And at that point, they told me that I was being selected, and they only select 3 people in the whole country. So I was very blessed and grateful to have gotten that position.
I love everything about your story, and I want to get a few more details about it. By any chance, do you remember which sporting event you watched and critiqued, and what your notes were of that event?
100%, because I thought I wanted to do something different. I love football. NBC, has Sunday Night Football. They have the Olympics. They have so many different properties that they own, but I chose to do a diving event. And so I remember watching it and thinking, I don't know anything about diving. I don't know if what I'm watching is either a good idea or a bad idea. It's either going to separate me or it's going to go very wrong very quickly, because I don't really know what I'm speaking to, essentially. But I just watched. I think actually that kind of helped me, not knowing, much about diving. And I looked at it from a unique perspective and a unique angle, to where if I was a viewer that did not know anything about diving, which is very true because I didn't, how would I want to be informed? What would I want to learn more of? How would I want to get involved? Like I remember they didn't have like a hashtag for social media where people could like continue the discussion online, and I was critiquing, some of the graphics that they had up, and I was, trying to implement ideas of what if we did this instead, and all these little things. So that's what I remember, some of the notes that I had, and lucky enough, I guess it worked. And so
it absolutely worked. And I think that's really smart. Now I'm going to quickly go off on a segue here. Whenever I talk to students, anybody who say, "Oh, I love baseball," or I want to work in sports," and I tell them, "It's great that you love this particular sport, but if it's baseball, basketball, or football, those are the main three sports that everybody wants to work on. If you can learn diving, if you can learn soccer, if you can learn volleyball, water polo, these different sports, it will give you more opportunities to get jobs because not many people know those."
Yeah.
But also, Kayla, the fact that you chose diving, okay, NBC, they do the Olympics. And so most people tune into the Olympics, and the only time they ever pay attention to these sports is for 2 weeks every 4 years. And so it's actually really important that you can explain people diving because most of the time they don't follow diving. So I think that your choice ended up being a really smart one. And I'm wondering how much that and this 17-month assignment that you had kind of help lead the way down the path of covering Olympics and Paralympics.
Oh, it was the best decision I could have made to do that program. I mean, it was such a great program where essentially I got exposed to so many different things. I started in the digital department. So I was essentially cutting highlights, editing highlights for their YouTube channel, trying to help grow that. Because at the time, I think ESPN was our biggest competitor and they had over 1 million subscribers and we were nowhere near that number yet. And so whatever sports we had rights to, whether it was, Notre Dame college football, Premier League, Sunday night football, supercross, whatever the sport was, we would cut these highlights. We'd do short versions, long form. So I did that. And then my next rotation was the Olympics profiles and features team, where we were essentially putting together, short features, long form documentaries, anything like that, getting people interested in some of the athletes that were getting ready to compete for their countries. And then after that rotation was done, I was a graphics PA for their Premier League studio coverage team, which is probably one of the biggest sports that NBC Sports has on their network and gets so much coverage and views. And you'll see the highlights. They get millions of views from people across the sea. And they are some diehard, passionate fans out there on the pitch. And so, I was just exposed to so many different things. And I think that helped me narrow in on what I wanted to do. But then it also did help made me become a more well-rounded person as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important thing for everyone to understand is that for every person who you see on television commentating about this live event, I mean, just for a normal baseball game, there's probably 20 people behind the scenes who are working between camera operators, technical director, producer, director, graphics, replays, the score bug. For the Olympics, I'm thinking that's got to be 30, 40, 50 people behind the scenes for every one person who's in front of the camera.
100%. I mean, the Olympics are so special because they happen, every 4 years, or if you're counting winter and summer, you get a little, 2 years. But yeah, they're just an incredible event to work on. And there are so many people in the building. Everyone's just running on adrenaline. Everyone is just wanting to do the best that they can to put on this amazing show, whether it's the opening ceremony coverage, whether it is all the big sporting events that people tend to gravitate towards, the Michael Phelps swimming, the Simone Biles in gymnastics, the Jessie Diggins crossing the finish line for the first, cross-country skiing American gold medal in history, and all those special moments. So I've been lucky enough to say that I've worked on 2 Olympics. I got to go to Tokyo for the Tokyo Olympic Games, and then I was working in Stamford, Connecticut for our Beijing Winter Olympics.
So you just mentioned a few moments ago that really helped you figure out what it is that you really like, that you most want to do. Give us more details about, finding that path and saying, this is why I like this and this is what I want to do.
Yeah. So in that 17-month program, one of the 3 departments that I rotated in, I think I mentioned, was the Olympics profiles and features team. Before coming into this, I always knew that I loved storytelling. I gravitated towards inspiring stories, tear jerkers, ones that made you feel something. And that's what that team essentially would work on. We would work on Olympians that were not even just necessarily Americans. They could have been, Petra Vlhova competing for Slovakia in alpine skiing, and just whatever Olympian had a compelling story was something that we would tell. And so when I was seeing the type of content that team was doing, I just knew right away that I wanted to do that and I wanted to be a part of it. And so lucky enough, after the 17 months were up, the way it worked is if you wanted to be in a certain department and they wanted you. It was a match made in heaven type of thing. And so you would just get a staff position. And of the three, I was the only one offered a staff position, which I'm very grateful to say. And so I think it just was the perfect fit in the beginning.
All right, let's transition to a story that you worked on that I teased at the beginning, that sometimes these really important stories can be really uncomfortable. And so for all of the success that United States gymnastics team has had and how much they've made us proud over the years, we see their work on the mat.
Mm-hmm.
But there's been some terrible things that have happened to a lot of the different women's gymnastics athletes. So tell us your role in working with others and figuring out what's going on and telling these stories in a way so that we can understand what happened to them.
Yeah, 100%. Unfortunately, the USA Gymnastics scandal was something that I think rocked a lot of people to their core when that news came out, and Larry Nassar, everything that he had done to those women. But what I got to help with that really resonated with me and kind of made me feel like for the first time I was working on something that was making a difference in a small way, was a USA Gymnastics essay that was voiced by Tim Layden, who was a writer, I think, at Sports Illustrated for many, many years. And he's someone that we tended to use a lot at NBC Sports. And he put together this, amazing essay on everything that happened from, the Karoli Ranch to Larry Nassar's abuse. And so essentially what I did was I helped support the footage needs for this essay, whether it was, looking at the NBC News footage that these courageous women, when they went to go speak in the courtroom, like the Allie Raismans and the many different women that had the courage to speak up. So whether it was that getting that footage, looking at social media, some of the tweets that had said, #MeToo, anything that would support the narrative to just really elevate the piece was something that I was responsible for finding. And I just remember looking through some of the tweets of some of the survivors and saying, oh my God, like what these women went through, I can't even begin to imagine. But if we can tell their stories in, the right way, it's gonna make a difference and it's gonna mean something. And so that was, one piece that I just will always remember and it'll always stick with me.
How long does something like that take for the essay that Tim Layden wrote in terms of acquiring all of that, the decisions that you have to make, the emotions that you're feeling as you're acquiring all this? You want to tell the story the right way. At the same time, I'm sure it has an impact on you. Give us, how long does it take to be able to put all of this together?
I mean, it varies. There's a lot of different things that go into it, depending on, what time slot we have for a piece like that in particular, because every show is going to have, their rundowns, and we're always trying to find a place for our content to air and get as much eyeballs as we can. And so that kind of makes a decision on what the total runtime, the TRT of a piece will be. And then essentially we could spend a week or longer working on something that might just be 90 seconds or, so it's really, really about making sure we have the best shots, whether it is, gymnastics competition footage. We have amazing DPs that go out and shoot these beautiful slow motion cinematic shots that just help us tell great stories. And whether it's that or finding, calls from announcers that can support that imagery underneath and just any outside footage, it's hard to say because every piece is different, but once you have a great team put together, it kind of just becomes like you're doing the motions type of thing.
I'm glad you used the word team because I'm a big believer that so much of sports production is a team. There's so many parallels to the teams on the field to the teams that are behind the scenes and working on things. Other stories that you've done where again, there's uncomfortable stories, there's happy stories, there's tragic stories, other types of stories that you've done that just make you proud that you were part of them.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough, and I never really noticed it at the time, but looking back, I worked on some of the biggest female Olympian stories, whether it was, Simone Biles' Olympic profile, Michaela Schifrin, Jessie Diggins, Suni Lee. That was kind of my specialty when I was at NBC Sports, but after I ended up leaving there, I kept in touch with many coworkers. One of them's name's Matt Allen. He's an amazing producer. I worked on my very first Olympic profile with him on Carissa Moore, who ended up winning gold in surfing at Tokyo. But Matt, I remember him calling me when I was doing the freelance route and asking, hey, like, I'm going to do this Messi story. Do you want to be a part of it? And I said, oh my God, are you serious? Do I want to be a part of Messi? Yeah. How quickly should I answer this? Yes, please. Of course. As a, you know, proud Hispanic woman, I absolutely. And so Messi Meets America was a 6-episode docuseries that I got to help with on the post side of things. I was a post associate producer, and it was incredible getting to work on that with Matt, Mo Finn, who was also a former colleague of mine at NBC Sports. And we just made it. Oh my God. I mean, like I said, it's a team, and we just had such a great team. And that was one of the best experiences I've had working on something.
Tell us where we can find Messi Meets America. You know, when you start to see the reaction of it, how that resonates with you.
Yeah, so you can find Messi Meets America on Apple TV Plus. It is a 6-episode docuseries that documents his coming to America when he was signed with Inter Miami CF, all the Messi mania that overtook the United States. We documented so many of the different matches that he went to, attended. Just the difference that he made as soon as he stepped on the pitch was incredible. And I just remember working on this project in my apartment because it was a remote gig at the time, which was amazing. Just looking through this footage and having sort of that pinch me moment, like, I can't believe I am working on something that is on one of the greatest soccer players to ever play this game, biggest superstars. Like it was just amazing. And that's something I'll never forget. And then to do it for Apple TV Plus, I remember growing up, I loved watching, whether it was The Last Dance during the pandemic, Quarterback on Netflix, like so many different sports documentary series. And I remember thinking, like, I would love to be part of something like that one day. And just the fact that I got to do that for Apple, with a production company called Smuggler that was hired by Apple, was just something that, I'll never forget.
Documentaries are my favorite things to watch, no matter what the subject is. And, I've had multiple people on this podcast who work in documentaries. And so it's super fun to me to hear these things because, again, I just love detailed storytelling. I'd rather sit through 6 hours than like a 6-second clip, So I'm super excited that you did that. Within that story, you said when you decided to go the freelance route. So there might be numerous people, including myself, who think, wait a minute, you got this incredible gig, Kayla, right? You're doing these Olympic stories. You're telling these impactful stories that need to be told. What are you doing leaving, going the freelance route?
Yeah, I know it was definitely a big risk, but like I mentioned, I grew up in San Diego. My heart is in California. And so it got tough being so far away from home. I made that transition. I was just 22 years old at the time, and I moved across the country. My mom and I packed up my little Ford Focus and hit the road, and that was it. And so I think being so far away from home, family is so important to me, really took a toll on me at one point, and I was really homesick. I knew that I wanted a change as much as I enjoyed my time at NBC Sports and had, so many fond memories and met so many great people. Towards the end, it got difficult to be so far away from family. And, my grandpa was somebody that was so special to me and inspired me. And I loved watching sports with. He had Parkinson's for many, many years. And I remember working the Beijing Olympics and finding out that he had a fall at our house and broke his hip, and he passed away shortly after that. And so that was really hard on me. I didn't know if I was going to work in sports again, to be honest. And so when that happened, I knew I needed to leave. I needed to be closer to family, closer to home. And there's so many opportunities in LA on the West Coast. And so I thought, let me just take this risk and leave NBC Sports essentially and see what's out there in the freelance world. And that's what I did. And lucky enough, it's paid off so far.
Yeah, so let's talk about women in football, this episode that you've been working on for NFL. Give us the lowdown. This is a very general topic, women in football, but give us the specifics on what you've been doing on this episode.
Yeah, so right now I'm at the NFL in Los Angeles working on a show called NFL 360. It's an amazing, amazing show that we have here in the building. And I want to say it's been nominated for 22 Emmys in the past 2 years alone. And so my boss, Trent Cooper, he is such a special person. I can't say enough great things about him. He's really become a mentor and has invested, so much in my growth and development and gives me such positive feedback. And so we have this show that we're going to release on March 25th. It's a women in football series, and it's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern time on the NFL Network. So I hope everybody tunes in. But, being a proud woman who's working in sports, I'm excited to tell the stories that we are telling. So we have a woman by the name of Ashton Washington. She's the first female scout for the Chicago Bears, who is really just incredible. She's breaking barriers. She was the first Black female hired on the University of Illinois football staff before she went to the Chicago Bears, and she's just a trailblazer in her own right. And some think she might be the first female GM someday on an NFL team. And then we're going to tell a local story with Drew Brees, who is a San Diego legend in himself that I'm sure a lot of people know. And he's going to host a girls flag football clinic coming up that is going to be amazing, that we're going to get to cover. So I'm really excited to have this whole Women in Football episode come together.
When you are working on a number of different stories at the same time, and I realize that there is no absolute way to answer this question, but what do you find helps you stay organized when there's a lot of different things that are on your plate? This story, that story, priorities. How do you stay organized so that you can be the most efficient version of yourself?
It's a great question. I think as I am currently juggling 4 different stories that I'm helping with right now, it's just a matter of, communicating with my boss, like what do I need to work on? What's priority? Like you said, we have a lot of documents that we put together, whether it's, all the outside footage needs that we're going to essentially have to reach out for in order to support this piece that we're doing. So whether it's just making sure I have all my documents organized in folders on my laptop, wherever they may be, communicating to my coworkers just to make sure that we're all on the same page with things. I think that's what essentially helps us down the stretch and helps make this amazing content that we do.
This is super exciting hearing about all these different things that you're doing, but I would be remiss if I did not bring up the idea that it's not always being a woman who works in sports, that for every person who does help you, support you, want the best for you, there's some people who do not. So let's take a few moments here, as many moments as you would like, to offer your advice to any women who want to work in sports about how far women have come, but yet how far we still need to go.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, Josh, because I'm proud to be a woman who works in sports television production. It is a male-dominated industry. As much as I would love to say that there, haven't been times where I've made to be, where I've felt uncomfortable, or there have been times where I was the only woman in the room and maybe not taken seriously. I also look very young for my age, which, can kind of be a downfall in itself because they don't think that you are serious about your job. And sometimes you just have to work that much harder. But I've also been surrounded by amazing women that have helped, elevate me, support me. And so I think my advice would be, if this is something that you love to do and you're passionate about it, don't let anybody stop you. Just keep going. I guarantee there is, it looks better on the other side. And once you get to that other side, and I am nowhere near, I haven't gotten there. I like to say I have turned a new leaf, but there are still times where, there are little comments made here and there, wherever you go or whatever. But I think you're always going to have those people that are, quote, old school and, might have a certain view on women working in this industry. But I think they are starting to slim out. And I think things are starting to get better for us women who love sports and are passionate about what we do. And I just think as other women, we need to stick together and really elevate each other in these roles, because we're already at odds with the career that we have essentially chosen just because it is a male-dominated industry. But things are just looking up for us, and people are so many people are breaking barriers for us that we need to walk through.
When you do hear those comments, do you just ignore them? Are you the type that wants to shove it back in their face and kind of give some snappy retort? What's your strategy? Because I'm sure that it hurts. Yeah. You tell me, I don't want to put words in your mouth. How do you respond when some curmudgeon old person says something that they shouldn't say?
Yeah. I think when I was first starting out, I was a pretty, I don't know if I would say shy or timid, but I wouldn't be the first to speak up necessarily. I'm more of a listen and then I'll process things. But I think as I've gotten older and as I've grown and gained more confidence in my career, I might have something to say back in a polite or, in a way that you need to really think about how you want to say it, but you can still get the message across in a way that is articulate and eloquent and yeah. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right. So we're going to start to wrap things up, but we've covered a lot of different things because you've done a lot of really fun, exciting things in your career already. So if there was something that I forgot to mention, something that I forgot to ask, some other maybe points of wisdom that you would like to share with anyone who is listening to this, I kind of want to give you the floor to fill in the gaps of things that I've forgotten to ask that I should have asked you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you touched on so many great things, Josh, but what I will say is the fact that I'm here at the NFL right now. I'm on a seasonal contract, which is sadly going to be ending in a couple of months. So I still have to look for my next gig, but I have just had such a great experience here. I can't say, more positive things about my time here, and just the risk that I took going the freelance route, I think was the best decision I could have made. Coming to the NFL, I've just been welcomed with open arms, and our visual storytelling is amazing, incredible. I've learned so much in just the, almost 5 months that I've been here. So my advice would be for people to bet on themselves. And if you are confident and passionate about what you do, like, take the risk. Because like you mentioned earlier, I had this nice, shiny looking job at this big company that I thought, was going to be my forever home. And I thought I was going to be there for many, many years to come. And I ended up being there for 3.5 years. But I still keep in touch with colleagues, and that has helped me down the way. So just network, take advantage of any internships and really build those connections, because they will, help you, and they want you to succeed, and vice versa. I'm rooting for them as much as they're rooting for me. And so I think that is just something really special.
I think what I'm going to turn into a new part of this podcast is at the end, I think I'm going to ask everybody to manifest what they want to do, because you used that word with your mom moving from El Paso to San Diego. So let's manifest, Kayla. What is an assignment, whether it's a one assignment, whether it's a full-time job, what is it that you would ultimately hope to do with your life, with your career here?
Okay. I think I've always said that my dream job would be to go out in the field and be a field producer. I think the ultimate end goal would be, and I've never even said this out loud, like a showrunner, a producer showrunner. And that's something that I have just thought about recently because of my boss, Trent Cooper, who is the showrunner of our NFL 360 show. And he is just an incredible human being. And I just look at how he runs meetings, the visual storytelling and just the way he crafts everything that we are a part of is just so special. Like, it opened my eyes in a way that I did not know could be opened. And I've learned so much, and just the opportunities that I have been given since I've been here have been amazing, just because he believes in me probably more than I believe in myself at times. And just getting to interview, these amazing people, and just the confidence that he's instilled in me, allowing me those opportunities just because he wants to see me grow, and he wants me to find my own voice and find my own style. And he literally just texted me the other day, there might be a little me in you, but I want you to be the one to really find your voice and know what you want to say to the world, and know how to do it. And so I think if I could be a showrunner someday, that would be amazing, incredible. But I'll say field producer for now. So hopefully I can climb up the ranks a little more.
Tell us once again when we can watch the Women in Football episode.
Yes, the Women in Football episode will premiere on March 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern time on the NFL Network. So please tune into that. We're really excited about it. It's Women's History Month, March, perfect ending to the month. And we have just some incredible stories that I'm really excited for you all to see.
All right, we're going to close by bragging about other San Diego State alums who are making us proud. So, Kayla, I know you have your people that you want to give shout outs to. Go ahead.
Yes. So I have listened to some episodes and I wanted to try and give somebody a shout out that I have not heard their name yet. So somebody that I graduated with, class of 2018 at San Diego State, was Mackenzie Boss. And like her name says, she is a boss. She is currently a producer at Access Hollywood. I think she's in Paris right now, actually, helping them cover some event, but Mackenzie is an incredible entertainment industry producer. She has covered some of the biggest red carpets. She was at the Taylor Swift Eras Tour concert movie premiere, helping cover that. And so I still keep in touch with Mackenzie to this day. We were both interns at NBC San Diego, funny enough. And so, yeah, she's just somebody that I am rooting for, always cheering on, messaging on Instagram every now and then, just telling her, like, you go, girl. And so I want to give a shout out to Mackenzie. And then the other person I want to give a shout out to is class of 1998, Leah Vallet. She is a senior coordinating producer, went to San Diego State, is currently at the NFL with me right now. And I'll never forget that when I first came into the building, you know, we have these little desks that are like cubicles, and a lot of people decorate them with like rally towels or flags and little mementos like that. And so I put up the Final Four rally towel we were given when I went to go watch the infamous, you know, Lamont Butler buzzer beater shot at Viejas Arena, that watch party that they had for everybody there. And so I got that towel, put it on my desk. And Leah, I was meeting so many people my first couple of weeks that I was here. She walked by and said, "Did you go to San Diego State?" And I remember you being like, "Yeah." She's like, come with me. And so she takes me to her desk, and she has this giant poster of the Lamont Butler buzzer beater shot just proudly hanging on her desk. We still talk SDSU basketball like almost every time I see her pass by, and we would even message each other on Slack after every win or loss, unfortunately. But yeah, so Leah is somebody that's very special, and she's a proud SDSU alum. So
yes, I know Leah. It's been a long time since I've seen her, but
oh my God, okay.
Yeah, our paths have crossed mostly when she was working in baseball with the Padres. Since
Yes.
most people, yeah. So that is very cool. And I just wrote down both of their names, and they will go to my spreadsheet for future guests. And so that is excellent. There's two people that I want to brag about. First, I want to give an update. Jack Malmed has been a guest on this podcast, along with his wife, Alex Piscatelli. They were in Maine, and Jack did some incredible work in Maine over the last 2 years, including the terrible tragedies that have happened in Maine. He just got a new job with Cron. He's from the Bay Area. So him and his wife, Alex, they are moving across the country to San Francisco to start his new job there. So congratulations to Jack. And I also want to give a shout out to Marty Caswell. She works for San Diego Sports 760 on the Darren Smith Show. And Marty's awesome. I'll never forget, we had mutual friends who knew us. And they said, because I was already working in baseball, and they said, "Josh, there's this girl. She is the biggest baseball Padre fan ever. She keeps a running tally of Tony Gwynn's career hits at the top of her phone." And I'm like, there's no way. What are you talking about? So the first time that I finally met her, one of the first things that I said was, "Show me your phone." This is before like smartphones. It was like flip phones. I said, "Show me your phone." And she whips it out. And I'm like, sure enough, she had Tony Gwynn's career hit total on her phone that she would update every time that he got a hit. She always listened to Jim Rome and all of the local sports talk stations. She always wanted to work for sports talk radio. She has done that. She's been in San Diego her whole life. Again, she works for San Diego Sports 760 on the Darren Smith Show. Marty's awesome. And if she ever slows down, I'll get her to be a guest on this podcast too.
Love that.
All right, Kayla, thank you so much for your time, being generous with your time and sharing so many stories. This was awesome that we were able to connect. And I know a lot of people are really going to draw some inspiration from your story.
Thank you so much, Josh, for having me. It was an honor, and it was so much fun.
Once again, her name is Kayla Asencio. My name is Josh Sushan. I'm your host of the Where You At podcast. Thank you for listening. Go Aztecs, and we will talk to you again next week.
Thanks for listening to the Where You At podcast. This is Devin Watley from the class of 2021. Thanks to Martine Marine for creating the music you're hearing right now, and Alex Piscatelli for her work on the podcast name and artwork on social media. And a reminder to SDSU alums, we really want to know where you're at. Tell us about your career. Get involved in the school. There's many ways you can do this, from donating your time or money, mentoring students, to even speaking in classrooms, in person or on Zoom. Your work can help us grow the program and create more opportunities for our students to succeed. Again, thanks for listening. Subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. Recommend us a future guest. And go Aztecs.